So this is a bass. They are in our waters down the south, pretty much the south end of the UK. They extend right down into the Mediterranean, and they go up as far as somewhere up around Norway, I think. But they've been moving further north as the seas, or the weather, the climate's been getting a little bit warmer. They feed on pretty much everything. They are quite a predator. They'll feed on anything from crabs to worms to sandeel, mackerel, horse mackerel, you name it, they'll eat it. Now usually you'll catch a lot of small ones on things like worm, and you'll catch small ones as well on lures, depending on what lures you use, that kind of thing. The bigger fish, they tend to be out on mackerel, horse mackerel, or simply eating crab. You'll get a lot of big fish eating crab, and one of their particular favourites is peeler crab, or soft shell crab. These fish are well armoured. They have spines along there, as you can see. They've pretty much got little spines all over the place, and they've got gill rakers, which is like blades on the side of their head. Now when you first catch them, they'll often flare their gills out, a bit like they are now. They'll flare their gills out and they'll thrash at you, and those gill blades that are there are just like razors. They will slice you open so quickly, so you've got to be very careful when you go to grab one, especially when it's fresh. Like I say, when it's just been landed, is usually when the head thrashing goes on. They go crazy. That's why quite often in the boat, when we catch them, you'll see us lay them on the floor, and we'll just leave them for a few minutes just to calm down, and they will calm down. They won't be so sort of violent with the head movements, and that's just for our own protection, and sometimes for the fish's protection. If we want to return it, we don't want it bashing itself around before we put it back. They make excellent eating, and there are many ways you can cook bass. It is quite a pricey fish if you go and purchase it, but it's a very good eating fish as well. Now during the summer months, bass will feed on pretty much everything, like I've already said, and during the winter, around about January, February, it depends where you are, but late in the year they'll head out to sea and group up in big groups and basically breed offshore. So quite often if you're catching bass that are inshore during the winter, or at that time of the year, they're probably not going to be breeding. Most fish, like I say, will be offshore breeding in vast numbers, and over here we have an area which is now protected during those months, because many years ago it got hit pretty hard. So, but they are a fascinating fish, a very powerful fish. I used to see them when I used to go snorkeling, and when they kick their tail, if you blink you'd never even know the fish was there. They move that fast, but they have to keep up with the mackerel. Now bass, you will find them everywhere. They'll come in literally on the shores, usually at night, within the sort of, well, I've seen them rubbing their bellies along the sand with their fins sticking out the water. That's how shallow they'll come in. They'll come in that shallow. They are spooked very easily. If you put your foot in the water, or they see disturbance when they're that shallow, they will bolt. Unlike ones further out to sea, they're not too bad. They like fast currents. They ambush their prey through that. When small fish get pulled through the current, they'll ambush them. On the shores, like I said before, you've got to be very wary of them, because they will, once they see you, they'll be gone like a shot. But you can catch them very close, and you can get some very big fish, very, very shallow. Again, they are looking for the crabs and the fish and the worms and that kind of thing. And at sea, they're chasing the mackerel, the horse mackerel, the garfish even. They'll chase garfish. Pretty much anything and everything. Depends where you live, wherever you live. Whatever bait you got is what you eat. So if you ever want to go fishing for these, just look at what you've got in your area, whether it's sandeels, pout, pollack, any kind of small fish in that area. Use that bait, because that's why they're there. Just doing a bit of trailing for the old bass, pollack, that kind of thing, and hook something. Feels like a bass. Yeah, behind it. Oh, might be a bass. Hit the surface and they know how to do that. That's a bass.
nice one.
Yeah. Lovely. Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. There you go. That's how you catch bass. It's a bass. I'm gonna get that in, all right. See, another one. Told you these lures work for bass. That's the second. Here's a small one. Look at that.
I would have thought it was bigger than that.
Yeah, felt a lot bigger, but it's a strong tide pulling, so. But it's all right. Putting back, but they're nailing it. But quite a decent bass. That one there, about the biggest we've had. So I'm quite pleased with that. I'm going to say it's quite a large one.
I think you're right in saying that.
Because when I hit one like that, it just went as I struck it, and I was just like, crikey.
That's a nice fish.
Look at that. Lovely that.
Yeah, nice.
That's the best one for a little while. We'll pop it down and get better. Yeah, lovely that. Very happy with that. Right, tackle for bass. Well, there are many different setups you can use. So we're just going to cover the kind of setups I've used over the years. Now, I've caught a lot of bass over the years, and that's not just boat. I used to do a lot of shore fishing. In fact, more shore fishing for bass than boat fishing. And there are several different methods to catch bass, the prime ones that I would use. So we'll just cover three of those. The first one, everybody knows, lures. Just throw lures out, you'll catch bass. Try to go slightly bigger with your lures or your sandeel, your rubber reels, if you want to catch the bigger ones. If you use small rubber reels, you'll catch small bass 10 to the dozen. You know, you'll catch up to sort of 2-pounders. After that, if you use bigger lures, you'll get the bigger fish. For some reason, a lot of the larger fish don't attack the smaller baits quite often, and I read about it sometime, a long time ago. So they don't get enough energy back from the energy expelled from the attack, apparently. How they know that? Who knows? It's probably just an evolutionary thing. But no, the rule applies. You want bigger fish, use a bigger lure when it comes to bass. Another method, if you don't want to use lures and you want to use live sandeel, then just a fixed spool, sort of 10-foot rod, soft to medium action will probably do. And basically a 4.0 to 6.0 hook. I crush a swivel onto it, a clip swivel, and I crush it closed. And I have these set up, and then I just tie them on, put the sandeel on, and then you cast it out and retrieve very, very slowly. You do this at night, dawn, it will get nailed. Even big pollack will take this. And no, the swivel doesn't affect the fishing. What the swivel does is it helps to prevent wind knots. You get a lot of problems with wind knots, make sure you've got a swivel. I just tie it straight to there. That saves having any leaders, any knots, any rubbish on my line. My line goes direct to that, and that'll just take out any spin if the sandeel starts spinning or the fixed spool. And it really does make a difference. And I used to fish doing a lot of fishing with this. And best night I had with this method, 13 fish, smallest fish, £4. So there you go. And the final method, my favourite method. Now this method is for really big fish. It'll take small fish as well, but generally this is for the biggest fish. What it is you have a swivel like that. You put that on your main line so it slides up and down, and you put a weight on it, a thinner line so it can break, bullet lead, about 18-inch off of that. Then the line that comes through from your main line, you tie it to this swivel, and then this swivel has a trace to a 4.0 again or 6.0 hook. These swivels are big. I'm only showing it so you can see them a bit better than the little tiny things. So the idea is when the fish pulls the bait, it slides through the swivel, that swivel stays on the bottom with the weight and it doesn't move because the weight often can get jammed in the rocks. Use small leads. Small leads will pull out of rocks far easier than big leads. You only need like an ounce bullet lead. Fishing for the bass from the shore, stay shallow. Don't overcast. So many people go down fishing for bass and crack it as far as they can get it. Keep it shallow. The only time you're going to be cracking it out is if you're beach casting. And even then you just want to get it just behind the breaker, because where the breakers are, the fish come bolting in behind, picking up stuff washed out the sand, stunned sandeels, that kind of thing. So they're lying just behind the wave area, running back and forth usually along the coastline. But when you're fishing from the shore, fish shallow. Fish 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, anything sort of that depth, and the bass will come in. Now they do come in mainly at night. Daytime I wouldn't tend to bother because they're there, but they don't tend to feed that well. So nighttime to dawn and first couple of hours of light, this method. Then when it goes down to your hook to here, you get peeler crab, soft shell crab. You can buy it from your bait supplier or tackle shop, or you can even go down the beach and find it. But you want the waters to be sort of 10 degrees, I think, before they start peeling the shore crabs. And you'll find them in about March, April, May. They'll shed en masse. That's a good time to go and look for them. But again, it depends where you live. To put the peeler crab on, you bind it on with elastic cotton. Again, you can buy it from the fishing tackle shop. It doesn't matter if you use the thicker cotton, it doesn't bother the fish. They seem to, everything goes out their head when there's peeler crab around. Peeler crab, they can smell for a very long way away. Now, the best place to fish for this sort of thing is find yourself the corners of the beaches usually, not in the centre, the corners, where you get a lot of stones and pebbles and rocks and things. You don't need, you don't really want lots of kelp because your lines really will snag up badly, but sort of stony ground. And or boulders, just great big boulders. Even if you throw your lines into the boulders, you might lose your weight, but the bass will get the bait out. People seem to think, oh, maybe the bait's gone between the boulders and they can't get it. They'll get it out, don't worry. They have a technique where they blow and they suck and do all this sort of thing, and it'll pull the bait out. So that's the peeler crab. You put the peeler crab. Now that method will catch some of the biggest. I've had, what have I had? Probably out the double figures I've had the shore, 7 or 8 of them have come off of peeler crab. The really big ones love peeler crab. I think it's because they don't have to expel energy chasing things. They just come nosing into the crab. They get a lot of nutrients out of crab, so that's probably part of the reason. Now, there are obviously other methods you can use. You can go fishing with worm baits, that kind of thing. I personally don't use that. I mean, people do go with lug and stuff. They will come in on the beaches and hunt for lug during the winter, or not winter, autumn, when the storms start, when all the lug get washed up out of the sand. You'll find them with stomach full of lug. You'll find bass with stomachs full of ragworm sometimes, when the ragworm breed when they go to the surface, and I think is it the male or female? One of them, male I suppose, it dies, and you get thousands of dead ragworm, and they'll go around picking all that up. You'll get bass will come along the high tide where there's rotting weed, picking up little maggots as well, and you get quite big bass will come and do that. Again, very high nutrition for them. So there are different ways. You can float fish with prawn, all those sort of things, but like I say, you're best to investigate those sort of things for your area. I mean, try different things, try everything. You know, just be very cautious when you go bassing from the shore, that when you're at dawn or at night, is don't disturb the waters if you're fishing in amongst the rocks. This applies to shallow water, not so much if it's deep water, you're standing on rocks or you're casting a long way, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're shallow and you're fishing 2 foot, 4 foot, keep your lights away from the water, because the movement on the light will spook the fish. Also, don't necessarily stand in the water, that can disturb the fish as well. And daytime, be careful they haven't got a horizon line behind you that you're breaking. Make sure you've got rocks behind you. They don't tend to see you. I think they just see the movement. They don't see you as such. They see the movement or a breaking horizon line. And they are very, very skittish fish that have in very, very shallow waters, particularly big bass. They haven't lived that long to get caught out by somebody standing on the beach. So yeah, be very, very cautious in shallow water bass, because they will spook. The times we've had people spook bass, usually we've taken somebody down, doesn't know much, they swing round with their torch, light hits the water, boff. Deep water, they don't. What the bass aren't bothered by the light; they'll just sit under the light. But in very, very shallow water, they do get spooked. Right, boat fishing. Now, boat fishing, you see, well, you've obviously, a lot of you may have seen the videos of where we catch on. We catch on like sandeels like this and lures like this. Now, it does apply, bigger the bait, bigger the fish usually. So if you're catching lots of small fish and you want to get bigger fish, up the size of your lures. It'll put the smaller fish off a bit more and you'll stand more chance with the larger fish. Now, again, this is just a simple case of casting these out or towing them. Same with this, depending on which ones you use, because this is a surface one which skips across the surface. Ones like this dive and they rattle and make a noise, the fish chasing them. And we've even got ones that we made ourselves, this one up here. And then we've got another one down here, which is just that goes down about a metre, I think, that one. So that's the method for boat. Same thing applies. You can put a ledger or a paternoster on with a live bait, like a mackerel or horse mackerel, something like that. I prefer, if I'm not fishing too deep, to forget horse mackerel or mackerel, just live bait them, throw them over the side, let them swim off. The bass will find them. And you do that with horse mackerel and there's bass in the area, pretty much 99.9% sure you'll catch a fish, because for whatever reason, they absolutely love horse mackerel. Same system applies with sandeel. Just fish it like you'd fish for anything else. Just tow it along with a nice flowing trace. The bass will attack it. Usually bass like to go for live targets. I mean, you'll always catch something on dead baits, that kind of thing, but generally bass want it alive or exceedingly fresh, like it's just died. So yeah, again, you can pretty much use anything for any kind of rod, reel when you're fishing for bass from a boat. You just go with your own preference. And like I said, the tackle is so diverse. There's no sort of particular setup. These setups I've shown you, or the idea of the setups, is just what I've used over the years, and I've caught a lot of bass over the years. I mean, you know, I've had plenty of doubles. Not in recent years though. Recent years, there's not been many at all. And the doubles I have caught are all caught not during spawning season, not when the fish are full of roe. So, and the final method that will catch bass, although I wouldn't necessarily target bass with it, is the pipe lures that we make, the ones that we show you how to make on the mackerel videos, that kind of thing. They catch bass, and you probably would have seen that in a clip that would have been a little bit ahead. And that's another way to catch, but generally you're only using those because you're catching pollack, mackerel, that kind of thing, and you still stand the chance of getting a bass by using them. And that's the whole point of those lures. It was to make a lure which could catch everything. So like when you're fishing for pollack, if a bass comes past, you've got a chance of catching it. Not that it won't get caught on, say, mackerel feathers or whatever you're using. So there you have it. That was bass. And like I said, there's a million ways. The best way to go catch bass is get out there and pick up tips and tricks from local fishermen that catch them and learn how to catch them the best way you can. Like I say, you can go down the beach and you can catch loads and loads of small ones, up to sort of pound and a half, even up to 2 pounds on all sorts of baits from ragworm to thing. But if you want to get to the big next level or the higher range of big bass, then it becomes a bit more tricky. That's where you need your peeler crabs and your live eels, your live mackerels, and all these sort of things.